Arknights Endfield is probably the most anticipated gacha game of 2025, but with anticipation comes expectations that have led to discussions being made about where the direction of the game should head towards, with Toboruo's videos being the main catalyst for these discussions. He have single-handedly brought to light concerns that may arise from introducing dodge mechanic into the game that could lead to the abandonment of strategic gameplay, which is the core fundamental design of Endfield in favor of appealing to a wider range of players. I for one disagrees with the notion of removing dodge from the combat system with reasons that I will explain later in the video. I do however agree with the sentiment that blindly listening to the feedbacks of the wider audience is detrimental to Enfield's direction and vision and could possibly steer the development of Endfield into something unbefitting to be considered as successor to the Arknights IP. This video will consist of my own iterations on Toboruo's talking points as well as giving my own insight into this discussion by establishing what it means for Endfield to be an Arknights IP, behaviors from players that have led to negative feedbacks, how both changing and retaining mechanics has its merits, and to understand how Hypergryph would have reacted when players demand changes that does not reflect Enfield's vision. As a side note, any mention of Arknights Endfield from now on will simply be stated as Endfield and original Arknights as simply Arknights. All my sources for this video will also be linked down below. First of all, we need to understand that an IP must have a distinct and memorable essence. Players must be able to recognize the IP by its icons, whether it is their color schemes, user interface, or actual icons. The idea of an IP must be easily conveyed to the players in just one or two sentences, and I think the YouTube page of our Arknights has conveyed its idea very strongly. A strategic RPG mobile game with a fantasy theme. A single word in that sentence stands above others to tell us what is Hypergryph's main expertise: strategy. How about we take a look at X**, Hypergryph's first ever premium game, turn-based strategic combat. Now you can probably guess what it is said on Enfield's YouTube page. A real-time 3D RPG with strategic elements. It is abundantly clear from these descriptions that Hypergryph's bread and butter is strategic gameplay, whether it is tower defense, turn-based combat, or factory building. The problem here lies in the emphasis on 3D real RPG and also in Enfield's visuals. Players saw Enfield's gameplay footage and immediately draws a conclusion that Enfield's main objective is to compete with Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves, which are both an open-world game, never giving a glance that Endfield was never mentioned to be one. This misconception is also further perpetuated from the supposed main inspiration for Enfield's combat system, the Xenoblade Chronicles, which is a series of action RPG games. In my opinion, Endfield was never meant to be grouped together with the Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves, but instead it would make more sense to say that Endfield would be a competitor to Limbus Company and Girls Frontline 2. Nevertheless, reality is not that simple. Hypergryph's failure in clearly communicating that Endfield would heavily lean towards strategic gameplay because of its ties to the Arknights IP, and players in misinterpreting Enfield's vision because of its 3D visual and combat have led to the problems we are currently seeing in its development. The problem also lies in the very nature of gacha players. Players from the more mainstream gacha games are more likely to view systems and designs that they are familiar with as better than others. This stems from the idea that we associate our knowledge of something to its quality. The more we understand something, the more we prefer it to things we aren't knowledgeable enough in, and this led to a perceived better quality. The perfect example of this is the gacha system. Many players have raised their voices to change the current system to be more akin to the ones in Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves. This heavily relates to the point from before because most of these players might have only played those two games or other gacha games that have implemented a similar gacha system. I very much understand the concerns that they have because gachas involve real money, and you probably would like to know how the money you've spent flows through the gacha system. But they are also ignorant or dismissive to the fact that Enfield's gacha system is just another iteration of Arknights' gacha system, a game known to be very free-to-play friendly.
with most units in the game not only being very accessible but also having at least a few uses, with easy player maintenance and a gacha system that is probably one of the best of all time, minus that never guaranteed 50-50. Arknights is one of the most F2P friendly games I've ever seen, although that 50-50 system is still really shit, so I can't give it a full 10 out of 10, so I'll give it a 9 out of 10 instead.
Another point of contention they speak of is that Endfield needs to follow the formula of already successful gacha games so they can recuperate the cost of its development, as if to say that Arknights wasn't a profitable game whatsoever. There will be people that will counter this argument by saying that revenue isn't everything, all the while upvoting monthly revenue posts in r/gachagaming and the revenue chart being a popular talking point for content creators. All of this can be summarized as gacha players giving feedbacks in the form of proposed solutions, while simultaneously being unaware that they are not equipped with the knowledge and tools to solve the problem at hand. In truth, those solutions more often than not will create unintended effects that players cannot be expected to foresee. Players do have a better understanding about how a game feels and are excellent at recognizing problems within the game, but they lack the skill and expertise of a game developer to tackle the problems they have spotted. If I were to be crude with my words, I would say that players who suggested these solutions are just talking out of their own asses. I want to start off this section of the video by stating that I am not against player feedbacks even after all the criticism I've made up until now. Feedbacks are a valuable resource for developers because it helps them make a game that will actually be well received. Changes to a game isn't necessarily a bad thing because it can contribute to a better player experience. It is not a negative thing to make Endfield more accessible to a wider audience, provided it does not take away from the vision of the game, hence why I disagree with Toboruo's opinion to remove the dodge mechanic entirely. It is not right to exclude players who have difficulty interacting with the game's combat system when the system is supposedly unintuitive and the main selling point of Endfield being its factory building. Toboruo's call to remove the dodge is another example of players' uninformed proposed solution. In his video, he has stated that
dodging is not the root cause of the issue,
but he still holds his ground on removing it. This has convinced me that he himself has fallen into the pitfall of proposing solution without having the required know-how to accurately predict what the removal of the dodge system will do to the current state of Endfield. This is also why throughout this entire video, I will not provide any suggestion to make Endfield any better, because I am well aware that I know jack shit about making a game. Retaining the core uniqueness of Endfield is also essential in making it stand out from the competitors. The factory building part of Endfield is definitely the most glaring example of this. Instead of neutering the factory's complexity, Hypergryph's decision to include a top-down view option for the factory mode is brilliant, as it facilitates player engagement with the base building, making it easier to digest while not compromising in its intricacies. I would also like to voice my opinion against downloadable blueprints that enable players to build the base in a single click of a button, as it will remove player engagement with the core mechanic of the game that every other mechanics heavily relies on. Developers, in this case Hypergryph, have the responsibility to encourage players to take part in the game's mechanic, and sometimes it is best for them to be blunt with it and just force players to play the damn game. On the other hand, the lack of blueprints are also beneficial because it opens up a venue for content creators to create guides, which is a staple in the Arknights community. As game developers, Hypergryph have to be able to filter the feedbacks they have gotten to polish the rough edges of their game, but not to the extent that it will remove the very thing that makes it interesting. Listening and making changes to every feedbacks are unsustainable and will just lead the game into a development hell, where it will simply rot away, leaving only a carcass of what it was meant to be. Developers have to be careful not to let the very fans of their game put them in this situation and ruin the game's potential. They have the duty to choose and act on feedbacks that best serve their own direction for the game. I believe that Hypergryph knows that trying to please everyone is impossible. At some point, they will have to stick to their own guns even if it meant that a subset of players may dislike it. They are bound to be people who are against any of the systems or mechanics that are introduced in a game, be it the combat system, traversal, gacha, or the base building. The group of people that does not like Endfield's vision and direction is because they want a game to be a certain way that they prefer. In other words, they do not want Arknights Endfield, they just want another game. Even then, I still believe that players have the power to make Endfield a great game. Players and developers are so intrinsically connected, so it is important for them to be included in the game's development. They just need to remind themselves that giving feedbacks are not from the point of helping developers make the best game, but from the point of helping them make the game they are aiming for. Game developers have a duty not only to provide an enjoyable experience for players, but also to listen to themselves and have confidence in their design direction. At the end of the day, it is Hypergryph's decision as to listen to every feedbacks or grow some pair of balls and stick to the guns for Endfield's vision. During the writing of the script, the 45-minute livestream for Endfield at China Joy was announced, and it would have been a while since the livestream was over by the time this video is out. All in all, the livestream was pretty mediocre but par for the course for a PlayStation-only showcase. However, one small detail was noticed by viewers, and that is Hypergryph has implemented a perfect dodge system which restores SP, does not consume stamina, animation cancel, and chained into a perfect strike. And some people's reaction to the system was very much understandable, but alas, I am sure it is what Hypergryph thinks is the best for the game. I am sure the changes and improvements to the dodge system was done after heavy considerations about what it would mean for the game's direction. In an audio interview with G-Course, Arknights level designer Da Huang says that he believes that player feedback is very important, but personally he believes that emotional feedback given by players is more meaningful than specific how to do this part, because in specific design, if one excessively follows the immediate reactions of players such as public opinion, it may lead the game design in some strange directions and ultimately may not achieve satisfactory results for both developers and players. Making players happy is the most important thing, but it does not necessarily have to follow their specific ideas about game design. Even though I am sure there will be people who are disheartened with the fact that the dodge system is here to stay, I would like to put my faith in Hypergryph that they know how to properly handle their biggest IP. It is only a matter of time until we and content creators see if Endfield can hold its ground against the other action RPG gacha games now that it seems that they want to compete with them. With that, I got nothing more to say other than thank you for watching. Leave a comment if you have anything to say, and like or even subscribe if you think I deserve it. Until next time, this has been Skybird, signing off.